All right, ready to dive in. Today, it's phrasal verbs. Those combos of words that, well, sometimes make English a bit of a puzzle.
Oh yeah, they can be tricky. And the deeper you go with them, the more you see how much they're everywhere in how we talk and write.
It really hit me when I first started noticing them. It was like, hold on, why did these two little words together mean something totally different?
It's funny, right? Native speakers don't think about it much, but for anyone learning English, phrasal verbs can be really confusing. They don't always play by the rules.
You can say that again. You can't just look up each word separately and think you've got it. It's like their own secret code. So to break it down, what exactly is a phrasal verb?
Simply put, it's a verb combined with another word, usually a preposition or an adverb, which we call a particle, and together, boom, you get a whole new meaning, often totally different from the original verb.
It's like taking two simple ingredients and mixing them up to make something new and unexpected. Flour and water, basic on their own, but combine them. You get the basis for so many amazing baked goods.
That's a great way to put it. And just like baking, there are different types of phrasal verbs. We've got intransitive phrasal verbs. Those are kind of like your standalone ingredients. They work all on their own.
Okay, I need an example, something I can picture.
Think of breakdown, like the call broke down. You don't need any other info, right? The car stopped working. That's intransitive.
Got it. But you said there are other types, right? Some that are a bit more, well, complex.
There are. We've got transitive separable phrasal verbs. As the name gives away, they can be separated. They need an object to make sense, and that object can either go before or after the particle.
So they keep us guessing. Example, please.
Turn down, like turn down the music.
Yeah.
Or you can say turn the music down. Both are correct. Both mean the same thing.
So the object can move around a bit with these guys. I'm seeing how these phrasal verbs can be tricky. What about the last type? There's one more, right?
Right. Transitive inseparable phrasal verbs. They're a bit more, straightforward in a way. The verb and the particle are always glued together. The object always comes after.
No matter what, these two are a package deal.
Exactly. Like run into. You can say, I ran into an old friend, but not I ran an old friend into. Just sounds off.
All right, so we've got the different types down. Now let's get to some common examples. This is where things get fun, because some of these phrasal verbs are so normal in how we speak that we don't even realize we're using them.
You're right. And as you said earlier, just knowing the individual words doesn't mean you know the phrasal verb. It's all about how those words work together to create a new meaning.
Absolutely. So let's look at some of these everyday phrasal verbs. We've got breakdown, but how about give up? That one seems pretty simple, right? Like, don't give up on your dreams.
Seems simple, yeah. But even with give up, there are, subtle differences.
Oh, tell me more.
For instance, you can give up on something because it's too hard.
Right.
Right. But you can also give up a bad habit. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
So the context is really important.
Right. It's not just the words themselves, it's how they're used. Got to make it even tougher for English learners, huh?
Absolutely. And that brings us to, another common one, put off. Like I've been putting off that assignment. Procrastination. Anyone.
Oh, you're speaking my language. We've all been there. But wait, if give up can have these different shades of meaning, does put off do the same?
It sure does. Put off often means to delay. Yeah. But it can also mean to make someone, oh yeah, for sure. Remember those tricky transitive separable verbs we talked about? Well, some of those can have multiple meanings. That's where it gets really interesting.
Really interesting. That usually means things are about to get complicated.
Let's just say mastering phrasal verbs is a bit like a puzzle, right? You need to see the whole picture. Sometimes the same two words can mean totally different things, depending on how they're used.
All right, I need an example. Need to see it in action to really get it.
Take off. It can mean to remove something, take off your shoes, right? But it can also describe sudden success, like her career took off after her book. And then, of course, it can also mean to, depart, like a plane taking off.
Whoa, okay. 3 totally different meanings, same 2 words. How do you keep track of all that?
It's all about context.
Yeah.
It's like we've been talking about. Think of phrasal verbs like chameleons. They change, they blend in, To really understand one, you've got to look at the words around it.
That's a great way to think about it. It's not about memorizing one definition. It's about how the phrasal verb works in the whole sentence, the whole situation.
Exactly. And take off is just one. There are tons of phrasal verbs with these, you could say, multiple personalities.
Okay, hit me with another one.
How about set up? It can mean to establish something, like they set up a new business. But it can also mean to frame someone. He was set up.
Whoa. That's a big difference. You really have to pay attention to the other words to know what's going on.
For sure. And just when you think you've got it, there's another meaning. Let's try bring up.
Okay, what could bring up mean besides, well, bringing something up from the basement?
It can be as simple as, mentioning something. Don't bring up politics at dinner. But it can also mean raising a child. She was brought up in a small village.
So the same two words can mean talking about politics or how someone was raised. That's amazing. It's like each phrasal verb is this puzzle.
It is. And the more you work on these puzzles, the more you see how interesting and complex English really is.
All right, so we know phrasal verbs can be tough.
Yeah.
Especially when they have a bunch of different meanings. But how can we, as English speakers or learners, get better at using them? Any advice?
Well, honestly, one of the best things is to just pay attention to how they're used in real life. When you're watching movies, reading, even just talking to people.
It's like learning by doing, right? Just absorbing it all.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to make mistakes. The more you use them, the more comfortable you'll get.
Mistakes are part of the process.
Yeah.
But what about some more, structured ways to learn them? Any tips for really making them stick?
One thing that helps me is grouping them by topic. Like, if you're planning a trip, focus on phrasal verbs about travel. Set off, check in, things like that.
Oh, that's smart. Like creating your own little phrasal verb toolbox. Travel ones, cooking ones, work ones.
Right. And flashcards can help too. Or language learning apps. Lots of tools out there to, test yourself and practice.
Flashcards, apps, grouping them. Good practical advice. But I'm also curious about where these phrasal verbs come from. Are there any interesting stories behind them?
Many of them do. Like look up to, meaning to admire someone. It probably came from, actually looking up at someone taller than you. It's pretty cool how these everyday phrases have, these historical connections.
Wow, that is cool. Like each phrasal verb has its own little history. It makes them more fun to learn when you know where they come from.
I agree. It's those little bits of history that make a language come alive,
Yeah.
And suddenly these seemingly random phrasal verbs, they make more sense.
Like we're uncovering some secret code, right? Seeing this whole other layer of meaning in English.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And the more you see those layers, the more you appreciate phrasal verbs, even if they, trip you up sometimes.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into phrasal verbs, what's the main takeaway you want our listeners to remember?
I think the most important thing is to, just be curious. Be open to exploring. Don't be afraid to try them out, make mistakes, have fun with it.
I love that. It's not about being perfect. It's about the journey. It's about realizing that language is always changing. And phrasal verbs, they show us how creative we can be with language.
Well said. So to everyone listening, keep exploring, keep practicing, and have fun with English.
And here's a challenge for you. See how many phrasal verbs you can spot in, the next movie you watch or book you read.
You might be surprised how many there are. Like a little treasure hunt.
Exactly. Keep your ears open, and who knows? You might even find a new favorite phrasal verb. Until next time, happy learning.
All right, so you're prepping for a job interview, and let's face it, everybody wants to just knock it out of the park.
Yeah.
We're going to dive deep today into some advanced strategies for job interviews, the kind that'll really help you stand out.
Yeah.
So we'll uncover how to really decode what hiring managers are looking for. We'll talk about leveling up your vocabulary for interviews and even mastering the art of asking really insightful questions. The kind that leave them thinking, wow, this is the one.
Yeah, it's interesting how often people, just kind of focus on reciting their skills and experience.
Yeah.
But there's a whole other level to interviewing that can really make a huge difference.
Okay, I'm really interested to hear more about that.
Yeah.
What is this secret sauce that goes beyond just listing your qualifications?
You can think of it this way. Like employers are kind of trying to solve a puzzle when they're hiring.
Okay.
They need someone who not only has the right skills, but also fits into their company culture.
Right.
Can tackle challenges effectively and communicates well with confidence and clarity.
So it's not just about checking boxes on a job description.
Right.
But really showcasing a much broader set of qualities.
Exactly.
I see.
They're assessing 4 key areas.
Okay.
Skills and experience, yes, but also cultural fit, problem-solving abilities, and communication skills. These are the elements that really show if you're the right piece for the puzzle.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And speaking of communication, one of the things we read about when we were prepping for this deep dive was upgrading your language. What exactly does that mean in the context of an interview?
This is where things get really interesting. The words you choose can have a huge impact on how you're perceived. So instead of using generic phrases like, I'm a hard worker, you can level up your language to something like, I'm highly self-motivated and consistently deliver high-quality results.
Oh, I see the difference.
Yeah.
It sounds so much more specific and impactful. Are there any other categories of these power phrases that we should be thinking about?
Absolutely. You can think about achievements. Achievement-oriented phrases like proactively implemented or spearheaded a project that resulted in.
Right.
Then there are problem-solving phrases, like streamlined processes to achieve or demonstrated resilience in the face of.
Okay.
And finally, don't forget about leadership phrases, like effectively mentored team members or leverage data to inform strategic decisions.
Wow, there's a lot to keep in mind.
Yeah.
But even with all the perfect power phrases, we still have those dreaded behavioral interview questions.
Right.
The ones like, tell me about a time you faced a challenge.
I know exactly what you mean. Those can be really daunting. But there's a technique that can help you structure your answers in a way that showcases your skills and experiences. It's called the STAR method.
Oh yeah, the STAR method. Remind me, what does STAR stand for?
It stands for situation, task, action, and result. And it's really a framework for telling a concise and compelling story
Okay.
that highlights your qualifications.
Interesting. So it's more than just stating facts. It's about weaving them into kind of a narrative.
Exactly. So let's say the interviewer asks, tell me about a time you improved a process. You would start by setting the scene, explaining the situation. Maybe something like, at my previous company, we were facing delays in delivering weekly reports.
Got it. So painting a picture of the context. What's next?
Then you explain your task. So as the team lead, it was my responsibility to identify the bottleneck and implement a solution. This clarifies your role in the situation.
Okay, so far so good.
Yeah.
What about the action part? Is this where I throw in some power phrases?
Yes, this is where you shine.
Okay.
By detailing the steps you took. You can say something like, I analyzed the workflow, identified the bottlenecks, and introduced an automated reporting system.
I see how the power phrases kind of naturally fit in there.
Yeah.
And finally, the grand finale, the result.
Exactly. You would wrap it up with something like, this reduced reporting time by 50% and improved accuracy. So using the STAR method ensures that your answers are clear, concise, and they're focused on the positive outcome, which is what interviewers really want to hear.
That's super helpful. But isn't there a risk of sounding robotic or rehearsed if we rely too heavily on this method?
That's a great point. The key is to use the STAR method as a framework,
Yeah.
but still allow your personality and genuine storytelling abilities to shine through.
Okay, so it's more of a guideline than like a rigid script.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes me feel a bit more at ease. Now, even with the STAR method up my sleeve, there's still those tricky interview questions that feel like they're designed to throw you off.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Totally. Like, what's your biggest weakness?
Us.
Or why should we hire you?
Those always make me stumble. What's the best way to approach those kinds of questions?
Well, when it comes to those tricky questions, authenticity is key, but it's also about strategy. So for what's your biggest weakness? You want to avoid cliches like I'm a perfectionist. Instead, choose a weakness that you've genuinely worked on improving.
So instead of trying to mask a strength as a weakness, it's about showcasing self-awareness and a growth mindset.
Exactly. You could say something like, I used to struggle with delegation, but I've actively worked on improving this skill by mentoring junior team members and assigning tasks based on their strengths.
Okay, so you turn a potential negative into a positive and highlight your commitment to development. I like that. What about why should we hire you? Any tips for making a really strong case there?
That's your chance to really shine. Don't just repeat your resume. You really want to connect your unique skills and experiences to their needs. Paint a picture of the value you would bring.
So less about I'm a hard worker and more about my background in data analysis and proven ability to streamline processes make me uniquely qualified to step into this role and contribute to your team's efficiency goals. Something like that.
Now you're talking. You showcased your understanding of their needs and you've highlighted how your strengths align with their goals.
This is all about showcasing the value that we bring. But what about questions that feel a bit more personal? Like, why did you leave your last job? Those always make me nervous.
Keep it positive and forward-looking. It's not about bad-mouthing your previous employer, but about demonstrating your career aspirations. So you could say something like, I'm looking for an opportunity to grow professionally and contribute to a dynamic team like yours. Emphasize your excitement for the new challenges.
So framing it as a step forward, not a step away. What about that classic, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Question. How do you answer that honestly without sounding overly ambitious or like unrealistic?
You want to demonstrate ambition, but align your goals with the company's vision. They want to see that you're invested in a future that includes their organization.
Right, so it's not just about my personal aspirations, but about how those aspirations can actually contribute to the company's long-term success. Something like, I see myself taking on leadership roles and contributing to innovative projects within this organization. Would that work?
That's a great example. It shows you're ambitious, but also thinking about how you can contribute to their future.
Okay, this has been so helpful. I'm already feeling a lot more prepared to tackle these tough questions. But, it's not just about what we say, it's also about how we present ourselves, right? I've heard that nonverbal communication plays a huge role in interviews as well.
Oh, absolutely. It's like this secret language that can either enhance or undermine your message. You could have the most brilliant answers, but if your body language is screaming nervousness or disinterest, it can really sabotage your efforts.
Okay, now I'm a little nervous. What are some of the nonverbal cues that we should be really mindful of?
Well, eye contact is crucial. Maintain steady, natural eye contact with the interviewer. Don't stare them down or anything, but just show that you're engaged and confident. Posture is also important. Sit up straight and lean slightly forward. It shows interest and engagement. Slouching can make you appear disinterested or lacking confidence.
No slouching allowed. What about hand gestures? Should I just keep my hands glued to my lap?
Not at all. Hand gestures can be a really great way to emphasize points and add energy to your communication. Just make sure they're purposeful and controlled. You don't want to be like flailing your arms around or anything distracting.
Got it. A gentle breeze, not a hurricane. So we've got the confident posture, the natural eye contact, the controlled gestures. Anything else we should keep in mind?
Don't underestimate the power of a genuine smile. It makes you appear approachable, likable, and confident. And just try to be mindful of any nervous habits that you might have, like fidgeting with a pen or constantly adjusting your hair. Those things can be distracting and undermine your professionalism.
Basically, we want to present a confident and authentic version of ourselves.
Yeah.
Both verbally and non-verbally. No pressure, right?
Right. But remember, the more you practice, the more comfortable you'll become. It's about finding that sweet spot where you can be yourself while also presenting your best self.
One of the things that I always struggle with is that moment at the end of the interview when they ask, do you have any questions for us? I always blank.
That's actually a golden opportunity.
Really?
Asking thoughtful questions not only shows you're genuinely interested in the role and the company, but it allows you to gather valuable information to help you decide if it's the right fit for you.
Okay, but how do I come up with questions that go beyond the typical, like, what's the company culture like? Or what are the opportunities for growth? I want to impress them with my insightfulness.
Think about questions that demonstrate your understanding of the role, the company's goals, and even some of the challenges they might be facing. For instance, you could ask, what does success look like in this role in the first 6 months?
Ooh, I like that one. It shows I'm thinking about how I can make an immediate impact.
Exactly. You could also ask about how the team measures performance and progress, demonstrating that you're results-oriented. Or inquire about the company's goals for the next year and how this role contributes to those goals.
That's smart. It shows you're thinking long-term and about the bigger picture. Any other suggestions for questions that might wow them?
You could ask about the company's approach to innovation, or their commitment to specific values like sustainability or diversity and inclusion.
So aligning my questions with my own values and interests.
Exactly. It shows that you've done your research and you're genuinely interested in the company's culture and mission.
This is giving me so many ideas. It's like a whole new way to approach that dreaded, do you have any questions for us? Moment. Is there anything I should avoid asking?
Yes, avoid asking about salary or benefits in the first interview unless the interviewer brings it up. Your focus should be on demonstrating your value and enthusiasm for the role.
Okay, so it's all about showing them that I'm invested in the opportunity, not just the paycheck.
Exactly. It's about finding a role that's a win-win for both you and the company.
Speaking of finding the right fit, how do we handle those moments when we kind of stumble in an interview? Those awkward silences or times when we completely blank on a question?
Everyone experiences those moments. Even the most seasoned professionals have interview hiccups. It's not about avoiding mistakes altogether, but about how you recover.
Okay, that makes me feel a bit better. But what's the best way to recover when you've totally flubbed an answer or just can't seem to find the words?
If you stumble over a question, take a deep breath and just politely ask to rephrase or clarify. Something like, Excuse me. I think I might have gotten a bit lost in my explanation. Would you mind rephrasing the question? It just buys you a few seconds to gather your thoughts.
That's a good tip. I tend to panic and ramble when I get flustered. What about those unexpected curveball questions that seem to come out of nowhere? How do you handle those?
Those are designed to assess your critical thinking skills and how you handle pressure. If a question throws you off, don't be afraid to pause and say, "That's a great question. Let me take a moment to think that through."
So it's okay to take a few seconds to kind of compose myself and gather my thoughts.
Absolutely. It shows you're thoughtful and composed, not prone to rash answers. You can even use that time to reframe the question in your mind and connect it to your skills and experiences.
This is so helpful.
Yeah.
I often feel like I need to have an immediate answer ready for every single question, and that pressure just makes me more nervous.
Interviews are a two-way street. It's not just about them evaluating you, it's also about you evaluating them. Pay attention to the company culture, the interviewer's communication style, and any red flags that might signal that this isn't the right environment for you.
So trusting my instincts and being honest with myself about what I'm really looking for.
Exactly. The right job is out there. One where you feel valued, challenged, and inspired.
All this talk about handling those tricky moments has reminded me of something we touched on earlier, the power of the follow-up. Can we dig into that a little deeper? It seems like such a small thing, but I've heard it can really make a difference.
You're right. A well-crafted follow-up can be incredibly impactful. It's more than just a thank you note. It's a chance to reinforce your qualifications and leave a lasting positive impression.
Okay, so how do we make our follow-up stand out from those generic thank you for your time emails?
Personalization is key. Refer to specific points that were discussed during the interview. For example, you could say, "I was particularly interested in your insights on the company's commitment to innovation in the area of," and then mention the specific area. It aligns perfectly with my passion for, and then state your passion.
That's a great tip. It shows that you were listening and genuinely engaged in the conversation.
Exactly. You can also use the follow-up to address any questions or concerns that arose during the interview.
So if there was a moment where I stumbled or maybe didn't articulate my qualifications as clearly as I could, I can use the follow-up to kind of provide some additional context or clarification.
Yes. It shows that you're self-aware and proactive. And remember, timing is crucial. Aim to send your follow-up within 24 to 48 hours of the interview.
Not too soon, not too late.
Got it.
This is like the icing on the cake, the final touch that can really make your application memorable.
Precisely. A well-timed follow-up can make all the difference.
Wow, this has been incredibly helpful. I feel like I have a whole new arsenal of tools and strategies to help me navigate the interview process with a lot more confidence and authenticity.
I'm glad to hear that. Remember, the more you practice and refine these strategies, the more natural and effective they'll become.
Speaking of practicing and refining, is there anything else we can do to really hone our interview skills and make sure we're putting our best foot forward? What about preparing for those behavioral questions? I know we touched on the STAR method, but I could use some more tips for crafting really compelling answers.
That's a great question, and it's definitely something we can dive into. One of the keys to really mastering behavioral questions is to not just recount events, but to showcase the skills and qualities that those experiences reveal.
Okay, I'm intrigued. So it's not just about what we did, but about how we tell it.
Exactly. Think of it this way. Facts tell, but stories sell.
I like that. So how do we transform our resume bullet points into these captivating stories that interviewers will remember?
Start by identifying the key skills or qualities that you want to showcase during the interview. Let's say you want to highlight your problem-solving skills. Think back to a specific situation where you successfully tackled a challenging problem at work.
Let me see. Oh, I remember this time when our team was facing a major deadline crunch, and the project was at risk of falling behind.
That's a great starting point. Now use the STAR method to structure the story, set the scene, the situation, explain your task or your role in the project, describe the actions you took to address the problem, and highlight the positive result or outcome.
So it would be like our team was facing a tight deadline, and as the project manager, I was responsible for making sure we delivered on time. I analyzed the workflow, identified the bottlenecks, and implemented a new communication strategy to streamline our collaboration. As a result, we not only met the deadline, but we actually exceeded client expectations.
That's a fantastic example. You've woven your problem-solving skills into this compelling narrative that showcases your leadership initiative and your ability to deliver results under pressure.
Wow, it really does sound so much more impactful than just saying I'm a good problem solver.
Exactly. Stories make your accomplishments come alive, and they help you connect with the interviewer on a much deeper level.
It's like giving them a glimpse into your work style and how you approach challenges.
Precisely. And remember, the best stories are those that are authentic, engaging, and relevant to the role you're interviewing for.
This is making me think about how I can reframe my experiences to highlight my unique strengths and personality.
That's the idea. It's about showcasing who you are as a professional and how you can contribute to their success.
I'm starting to see how storytelling can be a real game changer in interviews. It's like adding this whole new dimension to your answers.
It's a powerful tool that can really help you stand out from the crowd and leave a lasting impression.
Speaking of leaving a lasting impression, I remember you mentioned something about asking insightful questions at the end of the interview. Can we dig a little deeper into that? I'm always looking for ways to make a good final impression.
Absolutely. Asking insightful questions is a great way to gather valuable information, demonstrate your genuine interest, and leave a positive final impression. This is where you can really differentiate yourself.
I know we talked about asking about company goals and team dynamics, but are there any other types of questions that can really wow them?
One strategy is to tap into the interviewer's expertise. Most people enjoy talking about their work and sharing their perspectives.
So it's about turning the interview into more of a conversation.
Exactly. For example, you could ask something like, what are some of the biggest challenges you faced in this role? Or what excites you most about the future of this industry?
Those are great. They show that you're curious, eager to learn, and genuinely interested in their perspective.
Precisely. And you might be surprised by the insights you gain. It could give you a better understanding of the company culture, the role's complexities, and even potential opportunities for growth.
It's like getting insider information while also demonstrating my intellectual curiosity.
Exactly. Another powerful approach is to ask about the company's commitment to specific values, like diversity and inclusion, innovation, or sustainability.
So for example, if I'm passionate about sustainability, I could ask, how does the company integrate sustainable practices into its operations?
That's a great example. It shows that you're not just looking for any job, but one that aligns with your values.
It also demonstrates that you've done your research and are genuinely interested in the company's commitment to those values.
Precisely. It's about finding a company whose culture and values resonate with your own.
This is giving me so many ideas. It's like a whole new way to approach the "do you have any questions for us" part of the interview.
Remember, this is your chance to shine, gather valuable information, and leave a lasting, positive impression.
It's like the grand finale of the interview.
Exactly. Make it count.
I'm definitely going to be practicing my storytelling skills and brainstorming some really insightful questions.
Great. Preparation is key to feeling confident and ready to ace that interview.
Now, I know we've talked a lot about impressing the interviewer, but what about those moments when things don't go exactly as planned? You know, like when we stumble over a question or get hit with a curveball that we weren't expecting.
Ah, yes. The inevitable interview hiccups. Everyone experiences them, even the most seasoned professionals.
It's like that moment when you walk into a room full of people and they're all staring at you and you have no idea why.
Exactly. It can be unsettling, but the key is to stay calm, composed, and just remember that everyone makes mistakes.
Easier said than done sometimes, especially when the pressure is on.
I understand. But here's the thing. How you handle those moments can be just as impressive as your perfectly rehearsed answers.
So it's not about avoiding mistakes altogether, but about recovering gracefully.
Precisely. Let's say you stumble over a question. The worst thing you can do is panic and spiral into a sea of ums and us.
Oh, I've definitely been there before.
Yeah.
It's like your brain suddenly goes blank and all you can do is stare blankly at the interviewer.
It happens. Instead of panicking, take a deep breath, acknowledge the stumble, and politely ask to rephrase or clarify the question.
So something like, excuse me, I think I might have gotten a bit lost in my explanation. Could you please rephrase the question?
Perfect. It shows that you're self-aware, composed, and willing to ask for clarification.
And it buys you those precious few seconds to gather your thoughts and come up with a more coherent response.
Exactly. Now, what about those curveball questions? The ones that seemingly come out of nowhere and leave you feeling completely unprepared.
Oh, those are the worst. It's like they're trying to trick you or catch you off guard.
Sometimes it might feel that way, but often those questions are designed to assess your critical thinking skills, adaptability, and how you handle unexpected situations.
So it's less about having the right answer and more about demonstrating how you think on your feet.
Precisely. If you're hit with a question that completely throws you off, Don't be afraid to take a moment to pause, reflect, and gather your thoughts.
So instead of blurting out the first thing that comes to mind, it's okay to say something like, "That's a great question. Let me take a moment to think about that."
Exactly. It shows that you're thoughtful and composed. You can even use that time to reframe the question in your mind and connect it to your skills and experiences.
It's like turning a potential weakness into an opportunity to demonstrate my ability to think critically and adapt to those unexpected challenges.
Precisely. Remember, interviews are a two-way street. They're not just about them evaluating you, it's also about you evaluating them.
That's a good point. It's easy to get caught up in trying to impress them that we forget that we're also trying to determine if this is the right fit for us.
Exactly. Pay attention to the company culture, the interviewer's communication style, and any red flags that might signal this isn't the right environment for you.
So trusting my instincts and being honest with myself about what I'm really looking for in a job.
Absolutely. The right job is out there, and it's one where you feel valued, challenged, and inspired to do your best work.
I'm feeling so much more empowered now. It's like I've been given this secret playbook for navigating the complexities of job interviews.
And remember, practice makes perfect. The more you practice your storytelling, refine your questions, and develop strategies for handling those tricky moments, the more confident you'll become.
You're absolutely right. I'm ready to tackle those interviews with a newfound sense of confidence and a whole arsenal of interview-crushing techniques.
That's the spirit. Now, there's one last piece of the puzzle that often gets overlooked, but can be incredibly impactful in setting you apart from other candidates.
Ooh, I'm intrigued. What is it?
It's the power of the follow-up.
The follow-up, like sending a thank you note?
Yes, but it's so much more than just a polite gesture. A well-crafted follow-up can solidify your impression, re-emphasize your value, and even address any lingering questions or concerns that the interviewer might have.
Okay, I'm all ears.
Mm-mm.
What are some tips for crafting a follow-up that truly stands out?
First and foremost, personalize it. Generic thank you notes that just say thank you for your time don't really make much of an impact.
So it's about going beyond the basic, "Thank you for considering me for the role" message.
Exactly. Think back to specific points that were discussed during the interview and mention something that particularly resonated with you. For example, you could say, "I was particularly interested in your insights on the company's commitment to innovation in the area of Tamil," and then you mention the specific area that they mentioned. It aligns perfectly with my passion for, and then state your passion.
That's a great tip. It shows that you are actively listening and genuinely interested in what they had to say.
Exactly. You can also use the follow-up to address any questions or concerns that might have arisen during the interview.
So if there was a moment where I stumbled or maybe felt like I didn't fully articulate my qualifications, I can use the follow-up to provide additional context or clarification.
That's a great strategy. It shows that you're self-aware and proactive in addressing any potential concerns.
It's like giving yourself a second chance to make a really strong impression.
Exactly. And remember, timing is key. Aim to send your follow-up within 24 to 48 hours of the interview.
So not too soon, not too late.
Right.
Just the right amount of time to stay top of mind without seeming too eager or desperate.
Precisely. A well-timed follow-up can be a powerful reminder of your qualifications and enthusiasm for the role.
I'm starting to see how the follow-up is like the icing on the cake, the final touch that can really elevate your overall impression and leave them with a positive, lasting memory.
Exactly. It's a small but significant gesture that can make a big difference.
Wow, this deep dive has been packed with so many valuable insights. I feel like I've been given a masterclass in advanced interview techniques.
And remember, the key is to practice, refine, and adapt these strategies to fit your own unique personality and the specific roles you're interviewing for.
You're right. It's all about finding what works best for us and putting our best foot forward.
And remember, every interview, whether it leads to a job offer or not, is a valuable learning experience that can help you grow and refine your approach.
That's such a great point. It's all about continuous improvement and becoming the best versions of ourselves, both professionally and personally.
Exactly. And with that in mind, I'm curious to hear what has resonated most with you from this deep dive. What strategies or insights are you most excited to implement in your upcoming interviews?
That's a great question. I think for me, the biggest takeaway is the power of storytelling and the importance of crafting these compelling narratives that showcase my skills and experiences in a way that's both authentic and engaging.
That's fantastic. Storytelling is such a powerful tool, and it's something that can be applied not just in interviews, but in all areas of communication.
I'm also really intrigued by the idea of asking insightful questions, that tap into the interviewer's expertise and the company's values. It's like a way to turn the interview into a more engaging and informative conversation.
That's a great observation. Remember, interviews are a two-way street. They're not just about them evaluating you, but also about you evaluating them to see if it's the right fit for both parties.
I'm also going to be paying more attention to my nonverbal communication.
Yeah.
I never realized how much our body language can impact the interviewer's perception of us.
Nonverbal cues are incredibly powerful, and being mindful of them can really help you project confidence, engagement, and authenticity.
Overall, I feel so much more prepared and empowered to tackle those interviews head on. It's like I've been given a secret weapon or maybe even a superpower.
That's the spirit. And remember, the most important thing is to believe in yourself and your abilities. You've got this.
Thank you so much for sharing all of these incredible insights. I feel like I've gained a whole new level of interview mastery.
The pleasure was all mine. Now go out there and crush those interviews.
I will. And for those of you listening, I hope you found this deep dive as valuable as I have. Remember, the job search can be challenging, but with the right tools and mindset, you can achieve your career goals.
And never underestimate the power of preparation practice and a positive attitude. You've got this.
We'll be back next week with another deep dive into a topic that's sure to help you navigate the complexities of the professional world. Until then, stay curious, stay informed, and stay ahead of the curve. You know, all this talk about showcasing our skills and nailing those tricky questions has me thinking. Well, we spend so much time, focusing on how to impress the interviewer.
Right.
But what about figuring out if the company is actually a good fit for us?
That's such an important point. It often gets overlooked in all the frenzy of the interview prep.
Exactly. How do we go beyond just, answering their questions and really assess, whether we thrive in that environment?
It starts with self-reflection before you even step into an interview. Take some time to really understand, what are your values? What are your career aspirations? What are you looking for in a work environment?
So it's like taking a personal inventory of, our professional selves, our strengths, our weaknesses, and what really matters to us in a job.
Exactly. The more clarity you have about what you want, the better equipped you'll be to identify opportunities that are truly aligned with your vision.
Makes a lot of sense. It's like having a roadmap for your career journey. Right. So you're not just blindly applying for any job. That pops up on your LinkedIn feed.
Oh, I love that analogy.
Yeah.
Think about it this way. If you don't know your destination, any road will take you there.
Right.
But if you have a clear vision of where you want to go, then you can choose the path that leads you directly to your goals.
Okay, I'm on board with the self-reflection part.
Yeah.
But how do we actually use that information?
Yeah.
To guide our job search and, make smarter decisions about which opportunities to pursue?
It's all about alignment. Once you're crystal clear about what you're looking for, you can target companies and roles that are more likely to be a good fit. And this means going beyond just the job title, really digging into the company's culture, values, and mission.
So instead of just, firing off applications, to every company that's hiring for a marketing manager, I should be more selective and focus on companies whose values and, work environment really resonate with my own.
Exactly. This way, you're not just looking for any job, you're looking for the right job. A job that aligns with your passions and aspirations.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It's like dating. You wouldn't just go out with anyone who asks, right?
Yeah.
You want to find someone who shares your values and interests.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
It's so true. And when you find a company that truly aligns with what you're looking for, your enthusiasm and your genuine interest will really shine through during the interview process.
This is making me realize that self-reflection, it isn't just a one-time exercise,
Right.
but it's kind of an ongoing process of checking in with ourselves and making sure we're still on the right track.
Absolutely. You know your values and career aspirations, they might evolve over time. So it's important to continuously evaluate your goals, make adjustments as needed, and just ensure that your professional journey is fulfilling and aligned with your vision.
This deep dive has been so eye-opening. It's like we've gone beyond those surface-level interview tips and really delved into the deeper, more strategic aspects of career navigation.
Yeah.
I feel like I have a whole new perspective on how to approach the job search process.
That's wonderful to hear. And remember, the job search can be challenging, but it's ultimately a very rewarding journey.
Yeah.
It's about more than just landing a job. It's about finding a role that brings you both professional success and personal fulfillment.
You're so right. And with all these insights and strategies we've discussed today, I'm feeling more confident and equipped than ever to navigate this journey. and land that dream job.
That's what I love to hear. Believe in yourself, stay true to your values, and never stop learning and growing.
Thank you so much for guiding us through this deep dive. I feel like I've really leveled up my career game today.
The pleasure was all mine. Now go out there and shine.
I will.
Yeah.
And to all of you listening, we wish you the very best of luck in your job search endeavors.
Absolutely.
Remember, you are capable of achieving great things.
Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and keep striving for your dreams.
We'll be back next week with another deep dive into a topic that's sure to help you navigate the complexities of the professional world. Until then, stay curious, stay informed, and stay ahead of the curve.
Welcome to the deep dive, everybody. Today, we're going to be taking a deep dive into the world of California wildfires. We've got some really interesting source material for you guys today. It's an excerpt from a podcast script that focuses on California fires. And by the end of this deep dive, hopefully you'll be able to move beyond just the headlines and really understand this whole situation.
Yeah, we're going to go beyond just the surface level and really get into all the causes, all the effects of this, and what we can do to potentially solve this problem. You might be surprised what we find.
Yeah. One of the first things that just blew me away when I was reading this script is that something like 80% of wildfires are caused by humans.
Whoa.
That's a crazy number, 80%. So it's not, it's not just like Mother Nature doing this. It's really us.
Yeah. It really makes you think about our role in all of this.
Yeah, for sure. So to get started, let's talk about a little bit of a background here. California's wildfire history is long and complicated, but it's definitely escalated in recent years. The script talks about the Camp Creek fire of 2023. Oh, yeah.
As like a prime example of this escalation.
That was devastating. Thousands of acres burned. Tens of thousands of people had to evacuate.
Yeah. It's just hard to even imagine the scale of destruction. And it's not just the immediate damage, right? We're talking about billions of dollars annually. Like, imagine a small country's entire GDP wiped out every year because of these fires.
Yeah, and that's just the economic cost. There's so much damage environmentally, too, with all the carbon dioxide being released. We'll get into the environmental impact a little bit later, but it's a huge part of this whole story.
Yeah, for sure. So we've seen the devastation, but what's causing these infernos? The script points to 4 main causes. And it's a mix of both natural and, as we said, human-made. It's like a perfect storm brewing.
Yeah, it really is. The first one is one that's getting harder and harder to ignore, and that's climate change.
Mm-hmm.
They talk about the 2022 heat waves in California as a prime example of this, with the rising temperatures and the prolonged droughts. It creates this like tinderbox. So it's like climate change is setting the stage for these mega fires.
Exactly. It just bakes the moisture out of all the vegetation and makes it so easy to start a fire.
Wow. And then, of course, you've got that 80% that we were talking about, the human element that's causing these fires. Now, human-caused fires can be both accidental and intentional. But can you give us some examples from the source?
Yeah, for sure. On the accidental side, you've got campfires that weren't put out all the way, or cigarettes that are thrown out, even like sparks from machinery can cause this. And then there's something as simple as a car's catalytic converter.
Wow.
If it's really hot, it can ignite dry grass and set off a huge fire.
It's kind of scary how easy it is for these things to get started. What about intentional fires? The script talks about a particularly shocking example.
Yeah, the 2020 El Dorado fire was started by a gender reveal party.
No way.
Yeah, a pyrotechnic device they were using ignited the dry grass, and it spread out of control.
Wow, I never would thought that a gender reveal party could start a wildfire. That's crazy.
It really is. And it highlights the importance of just being aware of your surroundings and what you're doing, especially when you're in a place that's prone to fire.
Yeah, for sure. So we've got climate change making things really dry. Humans are providing the spark, but there's some other factors too, right?
Right.
The script also talks about urban expansion as playing a role. What does that mean?
Well, as more and more people are moving into these areas that border wilderness, the risk of wildfires impacting homes and people is going way up. So we're building in areas that are naturally prone to fire, and that's just making it more dangerous.
Yeah, we're kind of building ourselves into a corner.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you have natural causes, right? Even though humans start most of these fires, nature still has a role.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Lightning strikes, especially when things are dry, can start massive fires.
Yeah, of course.
And then there's the Santa Ana winds. Those hot, dry winds can turn a small fire into something huge really quickly. So welcome back to the deep dive. We've talked about what causes these California wildfires, but now let's think about the ripple effects. These fires impact a lot more than just California.
Yeah, we've been setting the stage, figuring out what causes this, but now we've got to ask, so what? What does all this mean for you, the listener? Even if you don't live in California, how does this affect you?
Right. We're going to connect the dots and show you how all this fits into a much bigger picture.
Okay, let's start with the environment. We talked about it a little earlier. We think about forests, we think, oh, they're beautiful, but they play a huge role in keeping our planet healthy.
Oh, absolutely. Think of California's forests like these giant sponges. They soak up all the carbon dioxide that's heating up the planet. They absorb tons of CO2 from the air.
So when these forests burn, all that carbon goes back into the atmosphere. That sounds bad.
It is. It's like pouring gasoline on a fire. The more forests burn, the more carbon is released, which makes climate change worse, which leads to more fires. It's this crazy cycle.
And it's not just the carbon we should be worried about, right?
No, not at all. There's all kinds of nasty stuff released into the air when there's a wildfire, like particulate matter, ozone, even toxic chemicals, and all that pollution can travel for miles and miles.
So even if you're far away from California, you could still be breathing in smoke from these fires. That's scary.
Yeah, it shows how connected everything is on our planet. What happens in one place affects everyone.
So we've got the environmental impacts, carbon, air pollution, but what about our health? I know wildfire smoke is bad for you, but how bad is it, really?
It's really bad. Wildfire smoke is full of these tiny particles, gases, and chemicals that can get deep into your lungs. It can cause all sorts of breathing problems, asthma attacks, bronchitis, even heart problems.
So even when the fire's out, the danger isn't really over.
Nope, not at all. The smoke can stick around long after the fire's gone. And like we said before, kids, older folks, and people with breathing problems are at a higher risk.
It's like this invisible threat that hangs around. And then there's the mental and emotional toll too, right? I mean, going through a wildfire, the fear of losing your home, that's got to be tough.
Oh, absolutely. The emotional impact of these wildfires is huge. People are dealing with stress, anxiety, even PTSD. It can take years to recover.
And we can't forget the social and economic impacts. We've already talked about the billions of dollars in damage, but it goes beyond that.
It does. Businesses get destroyed, people lose their jobs, and rebuilding is so expensive. And sadly, low-income communities and communities of color often get hit the hardest.
That's a really important point. It's not just about the damage to buildings, it's about the social and economic inequalities that get worse because of these disasters.
Exactly. These communities often don't have the resources to prepare for or recover from wildfires. It really shows how climate change and environmental disasters don't affect everyone equally.
Okay, so we've talked about the causes and the consequences. This is clearly a big problem with a lot of different sides to it. But the question everyone's probably thinking is, what can we do about it? Is there any hope? Can we make these California wildfires less frequent and less destructive?
There is hope, but it requires a big change in how we think about wildfires. We need to move from just reacting to them to actually preventing them, from fighting fires to managing the landscape so that fires are less likely to happen in the first place.
Okay, I like that. How do we do that? What does a more preventative approach look like?
Well, for starters, we need to rethink our relationship with fire. It's not just this destructive force. It's a natural part of healthy ecosystems.
That's a pretty different way of looking at things.
It is, but it's important if we want to find solutions that work in the long run. We can learn a lot from indigenous communities who have been managing fire for centuries. They use controlled burns to clear out underbrush and create healthier forests that are more resilient to wildfires.
So it's about working with nature, not against it.
Exactly. We need to do things like thinning out dense forests, removing dead trees, and creating fuel breaks. This makes it harder for wildfires to spread.
It sounds like a lot of work, but it's important work. What about technology? Can technology help us manage these fires?
Absolutely. We're seeing amazing advancements in how we detect and fight fires. We're also getting better at predicting how fires will behave. Satellites, drones, computer modeling these are giving us new tools to understand and respond to wildfires.
Yeah, it seems like we're entering a whole new era of wildfire management, like we're combining technology with this ancient wisdom.
It really is amazing. And it's not just about gadgets and old ways of doing things. We also need better policies and more money for research. But maybe the most important thing is a change in how we think about this whole problem.
When you say a change in how we think, what do you mean?
We need to stop thinking that we can only react to wildfires. Like, we see a fire, then we put it out. We got to be more proactive. We got to focus on preventing fires, being prepared, and building communities that can bounce back.
So it's kind of like wildfires are going to happen in California. That's just a fact. So we need to design our communities and our lives to be ready for that. What would that actually look like?
Well, think about communities where the houses are built with fire-resistant materials, where there's space around neighborhoods to stop fires from spreading, and where we have systems that warn people early so they can evacuate.
So we're talking about a culture of preparedness where everyone's working together to stay safe. That sounds huge, but really important.
It is. And remember, wildfires aren't just a California problem. They're happening all over the world. It's a global issue. So the solutions we come up with here can be used in other places too.
Okay, let's talk about what individuals can do to protect themselves and their families. Especially if they live in an area where wildfires are a risk. What are some essential things they can do?
First things first, have an evacuation plan. You got to know where to go, what to take, and make sure everyone in your family knows what to do. Pack a go bag with things like medicines, important papers, some clothes. Be ready.
So it's about being prepared, not panicking when something happens.
Exactly. And don't wait until there's a fire to figure this stuff out. Do it now. Learn the evacuation routes, sign up for alerts, and practice your plan with your family.
Okay, what about staying informed? How can people keep up with what's going on with wildfires?
Technology is super helpful for that. Download apps like CAL FIRE to get alerts. Watch the news, check the weather, and stay connected with your community.
So basically, know what's happening around you, stay in the loop.
Yep, and remember, your home is your first line of defense. Create a defensible space around your house. Clear away dry brush, trim trees, and use plants that are fire-resistant. Clean your gutters and don't keep flammable stuff near your house. Those little things make a difference.
Thinking back to that 80% of wildfires being caused by humans, it really makes you realize that we each have a responsibility to prevent fires.
It's so true. We need to be careful, especially during fire season. Putting out campfires completely, being careful with machinery, even avoiding things that could cause a spark on a dry day. Those things can save lives and property.
So it's not just about being prepared for a fire, it's about making sure fires don't start in the first place.
Exactly. And beyond what individuals can do, we need to support policies that help manage forests, invest in renewable energy, and fight climate change. Those are the big solutions that will help us in the long run.
It's about recognizing that this isn't just a local problem, it's a global one. Okay, we've covered a lot today. We talked about the causes, the consequences, and what we can do about these California wildfires. What are some key things you want our listeners to take away from this?
Well, I hope they have a better understanding of what causes these fires and how they affect everyone, not just people in California. But most importantly, I hope they feel like they can actually do something about it, that they can be part of the solution.
It's about taking action, being informed, and working together to create a safer future. And with that, I want to thank you all for joining us on this deep dive into California wildfires.
It's been great talking to you all. Remember, knowledge is power. Stay curious, stay informed, and stay safe.
And until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.